So, greetings. My name is Angus Winchester. I'm the Global Education Director for the numerous BCB shows around the world. I'm going to be moderating today's presentation. I'd like to welcome you all to the second pillar of BCB's ongoing engagement with and commitment to our industry during these troubled times, perhaps even more so today than ever. Every Monday, we bring you some of the highest quality bar and hospitality education that the shows are renowned for, split between some of the highest rated sessions from last year's event and also some of the extra sessions submitted from this year. Firstly, some housekeeping. We will be recording today's webinar and a link will be sent to you tomorrow. If you're having difficulty hearing us today, this is the equivalent of the "can everyone hear me" at the back, and are listening through your computer, please check that the speaker volume's turned up or message us through the chat box located on the right-hand side of the screen. Feel free also to ask questions at any time during that same chat box. We'll review throughout the presentation and we'll try and pose them as they come in. So, this is a chance for you to relive one of those great sessions that we ran at last year's show, but one that's been expanded, updated, and improved, if that is in fact possible. Franky Marshall's renown is well deserved. A hospitality industry veteran who's worked at some of the most notable bars in New York, such as Cobra Club, Holiday Cocktail Lounge, Dead Rabbit, and more recently Le Boudoir in Brooklyn, where she created a widely recognized cocktail program. She's been inducted into the Dame Hall of Fame in 2017, has spent 2 years as the vice president of the USBG NY, and is a judge for the Spirited Awards, as well as a member of the Tales of Cocktail Foundation Business Education Committee. Also an accomplished educator, certified by the Cognac and Pinot de Charente categories, and holding certifications from the Court of Master Sommeliers, Dio Carver, and the WSET. Julio Cabrera has been working for 31 years as a bartender in various countries, including his native Cuba, Italy, Cancun, which I'm not sure is a country, and Miami, which I know is not a country, but is very much where he is the godfather of that scene, since he graduated as a trainer in hotel and tourism in Nicosia and Cyprus in 1991. He was named 2013 GQ Bombay Sapphire America's Most Imaginative Bartender and finished in the top 5 in the global finals. Last year, he opened his dream bar, Café LA Trova, already nominated as one of the best new bars in the country, and in the same year was named as America's Bartender of the Year in the 2019 Spirited Awards. All of this whilst making his dream come true, to truly be a professor of future generations of bartending, teaching the Cantiniero's legacy. Finally, Remy Savage, who started bartending 13 years ago to fund a philosophy degree, but soon found his raison d'etre as head bartender of famed Paris cocktail bar Little Red Door, where his high concept menus became the stuff of legend. While there, he won the global title for the world's most imaginative bartender after winning the global Bombay Sapphire competition in London in 2014. In 2017, he took the seemingly poisoned chalice of taking over the helm of London's artesian bar post Alex and Simone. But its first menu, based around 17 life-defining moments, showed his massive talent for creativity and imagination, and that the place was only going to get even better if that was possible. He was named Best European Mixologist in 2018 in the Mixology Magazine Awards, and is currently working on 2 new projects and a book, apparently. So, such a collection of talent could only be here to discuss one thing: the bartender. There's no doubt that we've been experiencing unprecedented times in our industry. As establishments start to reopen, most will have to try harder than ever to regain the confidence of their guests, coax them out of the security of their homes, and get them back into well-spaced bar tools. But this topic is important regardless of that situation. With that in mind, though, it seems like an appropriate time to take a look at the role of the bartender and see what they will play. There was a time when the bartender was a raconteur, confidant, advisor, fixer, the ultimate BFF. Will that still be the case? And how have things changed? So, take it away, folks.
All right, well, thank you so much. Thank you, Angus, for that. Thank you, Remy and Julio, for being here. Thank you all people who are tuning in. So I just wanted to say, really, thank you so much for being with us today. I know that there's obviously so much going on right now in many of our worlds, between relevant social issues and the COVID pandemic. And I just wanted to say that, this might not be a priority for you at the moment. And if you don't want to watch right now, if you're tuning in and thinking, I really can't handle this mentally, don't worry about it. I mean, obviously this will be taped, so you can refer back to it anytime. I think people process and handle stress and situations in different ways. So I think for some of us, it's a great way to kind of occupy our minds and think about other things at the moment, even for a little bit. even for a little time, particularly when we're talking about our careers and our professions, and you know, again, reopening and thinking about hopefully making a living from bartending once again. And so, you know, and bartending is something that we do not only, as I said, to earn a living, but also to hopefully something that we get enjoyment out of, and also that something that we do to make other people happy, you know, make our guests happy, make the people around us happy. And I think that that's one thing that you know, that we could all use right now, is just a little bit more happiness. So, and we provide that as bartenders. So I think that that's a great way, you know, we can look at all of those things and how we can continue to do that for everyone across the board. So as Angus said, this is the reprise of the seminar that I did last year at Bar Convent Brooklyn with Eamon Rocky. And I just thought that it would be great to have these two gentlemen with me, since I've actually had the pleasure of sitting at both of their bars. Actually, maybe not Julio's bar, but I've traveled with you, so I know what you're like. And I think they're great examples of all around bartenders. And what got me thinking about this topic originally was working in bars, obviously, and training bartenders and interviewing a lot of people. And I realized that a lot of people didn't have a full skill set of what it takes to be a bartender. They could do sort of one thing, but when it came to, you know, doing something like relating to guests of a certain age, they could only relate to people, you know, who are in their own age bracket, or they could only, you know, make fancy cocktails, but couldn't really balance out classics. And that got me thinking about my approach and how to communicate to them what I thought they needed to know, and what I thought maybe I needed to work on as well. So that's how this came to be. And I think that so we're going to touch on a lot of different basic topics. I think it doesn't matter what kind of bartender you are, if you're a cocktail bartender, if you're a dive bar bartender, or whatever it is, this relates to what we do behind the bar. Not talking about the whole spectrum of the modern bartender and everything beyond, but we're talking about, you know, what happens when you step behind that bar, right? So, all right. So let's get started with preparation, even before you get into your shift. This is something that Gary Regan used to talk a lot about, you know, preparing, you know, being that mindful bartender. And I think it is really important to actually get your head into the game before you step behind the bar. So you're ready to actually start serving people. So, I mean, Remy, do you have a preparation method? Do you have a routine that you go through, or do you just kind of get in there and say, hey, I'm Mr. Hospitality, ready for you?
I think it's probably the second. To be completely frank, it's I know that I'd like to say I do my 20 minutes of yoga and get in the kind of zone, but it's true that I think it becomes very naturally. Every shift I would usually probably have a coffee and be a little bit by myself for 5 minutes and try and focus and make sure that I mean, working in 5-star hotels, I will make sure that I'm perfectly groomed and that I iron my shirt, which I didn't do today. But, you know, doing all these little things. But it's true that naturally, and the way I work today is very much, I just tend to go in. The pre-shift preparation doesn't really start, but then the second that I'm behind the bar, then it's all that kind of the OCD that would kick in. So, you know, is my shaker exactly the way it should be? Is my jigger there? Whereas this, I worked in teams with 6 people, and I worked in teams with 20 people. So you know that, you know, a strainers always goes missing, and I'm very particular with the type of jigger and strainers I use. So yeah, that's very much it. I mean, I very much make sure that everything is where it should be, and that I'm rested, ready, and in a good mood. And I think this is very much it. This 5 minutes with the coffee, it's usually a little bit of time with myself to make sure that I don't go in bring any of my personal life if it's not relevant.
Exactly. Yeah. We're going to get to mise en place in a minute. What about you, Julio?
Pretty much the same. When we go into the bar for a shift, I think we should be ready mentally and physically. So the preparation before going to work is very important in order to have a good shift with the guests. You know, I think we should go into the bar. We should walk into the bar smiling. That's the first thing. We should smiling, and we should leave all the stress behind. And in our case at Café LA Trova, we take care a lot about our grooming and uniforms. So it's part of the process as well. It's part of the things we do always before the shift. We step in front of the mirror and we look ourselves, how is the everything. And you know, Franky, the hair, we shave before the shift, and the uniform and the pins correctly, the layer, you know, the bow tie, everything should be perfect. And then we go into a bar and we check like Remy does, you know, like everything should be in place. If the jigger is right here, it should be here all night long. And we have to check all that before start working, because you know it's the way we do it. And yeah, it's very important. It's very important, all the process before the shift. And every bar is different. Some people do shots before going to work or something. But whatever you do, it's you have to be aware that, you know, like it's gonna define probably the whole shift after that.
Absolutely, I agree.
Sorry, no, I think it's super interesting what you're saying about grooming. So of course, I understand in Café LA Trova you have a certain image of a cantinero that you need to give out, and I think that's brilliant. And I think regardless of the venue, you always have some kind of a work outfit, right? It doesn't mean you have a uniform, but even if it's a white t-shirt or black t-shirt or whatever this is, but it's that minute in front of the mirror that this doesn't have to be, do I look handsome or do I look good? But it's more that like realization that you are now at work and you are at work in the mind space. And I think this goes very much with that second of appearance or grooming thing that I think is quite cool.
Yeah,
that's apply also for if you wear an apron or hat or something. It should be like that. You're going in front of a lot of guests that are looking at you, so you should step in front of the mirror first and look at yourself. If you have a beard, whatever you got, it should be perfect. I mean, it should be you're working in a place where you have a lot of attention. Everybody's looking at you. So apron, hat, or whatever you have and you're wearing, it should be, you know, ready to go.
Absolutely. It's like, you know, when you're a performer, it's getting into character, it's getting into your costume, if you'd like, you know, and that helps that mental preparation, at least for me as well. And like you said, why does it matter? Because we're in front of guests, you know, we want to be clean, we want to look, you know, well groomed. And by the way, whoever's calling, if that's for me, just take a message or put that phone on mute. I don't know who that is. And you know, and then when you get behind the bar, we're talking about a graceful integration into your shift. You know, the first thing I tell people to do when they get behind the bar is wash your hands, right? Or even right before you step into the bar. Why? Again, it's a psychological thing. It's like you're washing away the outside world. Maybe that burger that you just ate, or you just tied up your city bike, you know, outside. You know, you're like, we're surgeons going into surgery, right? We need clean hands to start the shift. And even more so now with, obviously, hopefully everyone's gotten into the habit of washing their hands, you know, all the time. And even when a lot of us will be wearing gloves now, and just keep in mind, the glove is protecting your hand, but the glove is still, if you're touching money and then touching garnishes and you think, oh, I've got a glove on, you still need to keep that glove clean, you know? So I've seen that a lot these days, the dreaded gloved hand. So we're gracefully integrating into the shift. And now let's get back to the mise en place, right? We've all done that thing where we're coming in, say it's Saturday, the shift switch over, and you know it's already busy, and you get back behind there and guests are asking you for drinks. You're like, but where is everything? I can't, just give me a minute. It's so important to have everything in the right place all the time, right? Right, Julio, you were saying.
Yeah, exactly. The mise en place, I think, is the #1 step for a successful shift. If you want to be successful in the whole shift, the first things you have to have ready is the mise en place. If you don't have the garnish, if you don't have the tools, if you don't have the juices, if you don't have the backup spirit in your well, it's gonna be a problem. It's depending the day of the week, of course, but any day you have to look at everything around you at your bar. And you have to be sure you have everything in place, you know, mise en place, that's the name. And it should be enough for the whole shift, depending the day of the week. It's very important. If you miss that, it's gonna be a terrible shift. And that's very important. That's the first step when you work. I mean, in this case, the second after yourself, no? Everything you do before. But mise en place is the #1 step.
So Remy, maybe you can tell us exactly what mise en place means for those of us who don't know.
Mise en place is first in place. So it's very much put in place. So I guess it would be, this pen lives here, so this is where it has to go. But then obviously with time, it became all the preparation that have to do with the things you are using for your shift, and making sure you have a sufficient amount, or that you have at least the system. And I think that's what's important. I agree with everything Julio is saying, and for me, very much comes down to system. Now, it's true that I'm particularly disorganized in my personal life, I would say, and my head just goes a little bit everywhere, and that's definitely one of my weakest point. But I realized that, very much writing down exactly what had to be done based on the day, and making sure that, as you say, the shift switch goes smoothly. This just comes from having, a list that you tick, and it's like, have I got 261 lime wedges? Are all lime wedges perfect? And then, you tick it, and then this kind of puts my mind at ease. But it's also true that I don't. I know it's a very common thing. I think especially in the US, that you have very long shifts, very long operating hours, and it was the same when I worked in a 5-star hotel. But for me, usually you would do your own mise en place, and this is the best thing. I don't want to arrive and have someone else working 4 hours to just cut my lemons, because for me something doesn't really click. So it's true that once I do open my next venues, the shifts will be planned in a way that each person will be responsible for their own mise en place, and I believe that's a great way to have an efficient shift. Sorry, you know where everything is, and you can rely on yourself to exactly to what you've done in order to have that shift.
Right. And in addition to the physical mise en place, I think a mental mise en place is important as well. And what I mean by that is just knowing where everything is and what you're going to do when you run out of that thing. We don't always have bar backs. And it's great to be, and I think that's a great idea, Remy, to make people self-sufficient. I literally worked with somebody once, and it was, we ran out of sage or something. I said, can you go grab some more sage? And he said, actually, I've never had to restock that before. I don't know where it is. Someone I'd been working with for months, and I was like, how can you not know where that is? So we always need to know where everything is, right? Being that self-sufficient person and not depending on other people to tell you where everything else is. You can find it. So that's the mental mise en place, right? Knowing what to do when we get into that situation. So what if we move on to, so we've set up the bar, right? Now we're behind the bar. Body language. I think this is a really important one because I see it a lot here. Maybe working in 5-star hotels, Remy, where you work, but a lot of bars, you just see people kind of, hanging out, or this is my favorite. What is this telling you? What is this telling a guest when you have your arms folded, right? You're literally closing off your body. I'm bored. I'm not interested. What? So let's talk about body language. How do you, Julio, what are you thoughts? Give me some thoughts.
Body language is I mean, in every aspect of life says a lot. If you're behind the bar and you're using your hands a lot, talking to people, or you're laying on the bar, like a position that is not for me professional, or you're doing like this, is first that you have nothing to do. I mean, like you're bored, and behind the bar we always have something to do. It's something you have to polish a glass, a cup, everything. You have to always be doing something, and if you're doing like that, I mean, I don't think it's professional. When people look at you and they see you in that way, I don't think it's a good example to show them. Because behind the bar you have to be at least watching the people around, every details. You can be singing or dancing or something. If you have nothing to do something, but not, body language is very important. I think when you have a conversation with a guest, even if you work in a super high volume bar, or a classic bar, or a lobby bar in a hotel, you should be like used to body language a lot. So it's something that I've learned from very classic bartenders, master bartenders. Say, when you talk like with good manners. With good manners, not like, of course, if you work in a nightclub and you're doing flair, probably it's going to be a little bit different. But in case of mixologists or nice bars around the world, when you talk to somebody, you should be more, even if they are your friends, you know, friends or family, it doesn't matter, because some other people, they don't know if they are your friends. You should keep your body language to minimum, be discreet and be very polite.
Right. Well, I think you make a good point. It really does depend on the environment that you're working in, right? But Remy, how do you communicate to the people that you work with that, you know, maybe they need to be perhaps a little bit more, you know, whatever the look would have to be for where you're working. You know, how would you do that in a nice way, or maybe you just kind of give them a little tap with a ruler?
I'm very bad at giving taps. I think there's something super interesting that you both said, that like what's important, what makes a good bar, a good restaurant, or a good fast food chain is always that idea of, you know, a concept that is well respected and all rounded. So we go from the uniform, the body language, the music, the confidence of the chair. It's usually kind of a rounded experience, right? So of course each venue would differ from what body language is expected. And I know that when I eventually left this luxury environment, I was kind of stuck into that habit of that five-star Remy, you know, that is like,
Yeah.
And perhaps it's just not going to work in a classic street bar. But for me, I believe that there's something amazing that happens, which is like mimetism. Can you say this in English? The fact that you will reproduce what you see and you see fit. So for example, I know that if I was to apply for a job at Café LA Trova, maybe luckily I'll get a job one day there, just looking at Julio, I'm going to understand what is expected of my body language by looking at him. And I think there's all these things are things that you learn intuitively just by looking around and seeing what's appropriate. So being flexible and not being like stuck into, dear sir, madam, how are you? Or what's up, buddy? It's kind of, you know, every situation does differ, but as long as you adapt and as long as you look up to the people that are responsible for the situation to go smoothly, I think that's usually the right way to do it.
Great. So you bring up the point then, which is very important, is as leaders in the bar, you must be leading by example, because the staff, your colleagues are looking to you for your cues. So if you're the one leaning against the bar, then that's going to just, you know, be like a domino effect.
I think it's the only thing that I would say works in every menu is if you smile and if you're nice. I don't know any bar that is made worse by having friendly, smiley staff. I think that this is the same in a 3 Michelin star or a dive bar. You want someone that is friendly and that smile and that is happy to be here. And this would be the only thing that you have to do, is just smile, and then like it might sound false for a second, but naturally you're just going to have a better time smiling.
Right, absolutely. And just one of my pet peeves is, you know, just touching your face a lot, you know, especially again right now, you know, where people are not touching their face hopefully as much, but I see that a lot behind the bar, seeing, you know, people with their beards. Again, I worked with somebody one time and I had to, you know, he was always kind of scratching his beard, and I literally had a guest who was a bartender say, you know, what's up with your, you know, your colleague there? Can you tell him to stop touching his beard? Yeah, okay, no. But people really notice, right? And even hair, you know, I noticed this a lot. I've been trying not to touch my hair, but it's a thing that we do sometimes, right? So just be conscious of that, because again, these hands are going to be used to, you know, make people's drinks, and just keep remembering that, and just keep washing those hands too. So reading guests, and this is a big one, right? This is something that some people have it innately, but it's something that people need to learn to do, and it takes time, right, to be able to see or tell what your guests, I mean, beyond the whole, I'm clutching my drink is empty, I'm clutching my purse, I probably want to go. That's kind of an obvious sign, but there are other clues that we need to look for when we're looking at guests, particularly solo guests, and how to engage with them, what they want, when they want to be spoken to, when they don't. And especially again now with you know, post-COVID, people are going to be a little bit more, or maybe a lot more sensitive to what's happening in the environment. You know, they're going to be looking to us for a little bit more directives. So how do we read our guests? How do we still, you know, be that great host of the party when there might not be as much of a party going on in the bar? Remy, what do you think about reading guests? What's your?
I think to talk about, I don't feel qualified nor in the know of what will happen next and how we're going to be able to address all this. But I think it's in terms of reading guests, for me, there's as you say, I think it does come with experience, but there are also some signs. So it's just a matter of looking up and looking around you. So if you're always looking up and you're always looking at the guest, there are some signs that you are naturally going to pick up instantly. You know, that if someone is just looking around, they probably have a question to ask. You know, if they're looking where the menus are, they probably would like to be offered a cocktail menu. You know, there's all these things that are just going to come as long as you realize that you have to always be in a state that is alert. You always need to be. You never kind of like, oh, I'm done for the moment, right? There's always something to look at. Perhaps someone at table 45 all the way over there is, you know, there's always things to look at. So for me, you learn how to read guests the second you remember that you always have to be an observer of the situation, because you are in charge of the situation and an atmosphere and people having a good time. So I think it's I think that's very much the way to do it.
Yeah, Julio, thoughts? I mean, especially someone like
Yeah,
you, you're very much into, you know, the dancing, and you're very much into, you know, throwing this party behind the bar. How do you get your guests engaged in that, or how do you do that?
it's something that we learn with the years. I mean, at the beginning, probably we didn't know exactly the mood of every guest going to a bar. But with the time, we have to learn, and every bartender have to learn how to read the guests and how to guess, you know, what they're going for, because not everybody go to a bar with in the same mood or for the same reason. Some people go to celebrate something, birthday or anniversary, but some other people they're going to forget. They don't feel that well, but still they're going to a bar to forget, because, you know, a little bit of alcohol, a cocktail, or conversation with somebody is going to release their pain or something. So you have to identify that, because sometimes when you're going to have a conversation with a guest, that for me is the most important part of your job behind the bar, having a conversation. You should know what to say and in what direction you should take, what kind of conversation is. I mean, and you should identify that. They going to party, they happy, or they you know, like they sad, they, you know, like they feeling blues or something. You have to identify that and be able from that to have a conversation, depending how busy you are behind the bar. But yeah, it's very important. It's something you learn more with the years, but it's very, very important. Yeah.
So what about some tricks when you're busy behind the bar? How do you get away? Remy, do you have any tricks for that? Or Julio?
Remy.
Yeah.
How do you get away with being busy behind the bar? I think it's like the oldest trick in the book, right? You make sure that everyone that is at the bar in front of you. It depends if you have a dispenser, if you have a space that is just created for assembling drinks as fast as possible. That's a completely different conversation. But usually, what is the thing that slows you down is people trying to interact with you when you're busy. And then I think that's okay, but it's usually you have a breaking point where, you know, the tickets keep on piling up and people keep on talking to you, and you want to say, I'm sorry, but I'm busy. But obviously you're not going to say that because you're a decent bartender. So it's usually finding a way to get people to interact with each other. And at the same time, you know, if I got two people that are by themselves and I do get 20 drinks to make in one go, I'm obviously going to first of all rely on my team and have a nice kind of support system where people can help me out or do something, or I will make sure that I top up their water before. Everything that I have to do that is something mandatory I would do. And then when it comes down to engagement, I make sure that, you know, I would try and find a way to introduce a person to another, or to talk about a drink, or perhaps something they have in common within the drinks they've ordered, to give myself the 10 minutes that it would take me to make 20 drinks or 15 drinks or however much.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you. Get your guests engaged with each other as much as possible. You know, if you hear that somebody has, you know, a similar interest, or they're from the same city, you know, bang, put them together. And that's going to be, let's admit, a little bit more difficult maybe now, moving right into it, because maybe people don't want to associate so much. Maybe they have to be spaced out. So that could be a little bit more difficult. You face that yet, Julio? Because you just reopened, right?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Yeah, we reopened last Wednesday, and it's like that. You know, like the trick is just like a question. You should have a conversation with the guest a couple times a night, and I think the trick is, even if you're busy, it's just a question. Just like where you from? It's your first time here, and do you like sport? Do you see what's happened last night in downtown? Whatever. You should. I think a bartender, and mostly young bartenders, that probably they don't like to talk too much to old guests, all their customers. They should know a little bit about everything to be able to have a conversation with different kind of guests. You should know about a little bit of economy, sports, what's happened with baseball or football, you should talk about something. So if you're taking care of the customer, at least like Remy says, just refilling the water, in that 3 seconds that you're refilling the water, you should add something. Are you having a good time? You're celebrating? And if you're busy, you have to leave, you should leave them connected to other people, as you said, Frankie. But also, you know, like in my case, I take my maracas and say, oh, hold my maracas, play a little bit, I'll be right back. And yeah, and I make them part of the show as well, and they appreciate that. So it's just a simple question, and you engage them into the party, and the whole party is bartenders and guests. That's a trick.
Yeah, hold my maracas. You heard it here first.
Hold my maracas.
Don't touch that one. Not touch it. All right. So
I mean, another instrument as well, the güiro or something there.
hold my güiro. That's even worse.
You're always thinking like this.
For sure. So, well, on that note, though, what about the vocabulary? Because that's something that I notice a lot. You know, I used to go out to eat a lot alone by myself, and you know, the amount of times that someone referred to me as dude, you know, like, you know, I don't want to be duded, you know, it's cute, but no, thanks. And or just, you know, have an older couple come into the bar and have someone say, hey guys, you know, maybe they don't want to be referred to as hey guys kind of thing. So how do we, you know, how do we get beyond that with the vocabulary? Remy, do you have thoughts on that? You know, especially coming from that 5-star perspective. You know, you can do it one way then, but like if you're just working a regular bar, like how do you read that?
Yeah, I think that I don't know, I want to say that I'm not as firm on you on being referred to as a guys or that kind of stuff. Even in a 5-star environment, I believe there's always an appropriate time to say a guys, and that very much comes down from like the level of comfort and professionalism that comes from the person that happens to be a host. I've only worked in bars where people that were behind the bar were effectively on the floor, were effectively at the door, were in the kitchen, were just doing everything because this was kind of part of it. And interacting with guests when they come in, because that's what we're talking about. But overall, I think it's again a matter of being adaptable. But there are just some things that you shouldn't say. So being very much going with what Julio was saying, but you know, to be well spoken is key. To have interest is key. But the way you're going to structure your sentences and the way you're going to, you know, you don't say you want to pay there. You're obviously going to be trying to bring it in a way that is polite. So I think that's the same rule as being a decent human. You're just going to walk around town speaking to people in a way that is well spoken, which defeats what I'm saying, but it's also polite. And I think as long as you're polite and you have the right energy, everything can work. And I've seen in 5-star environments where people are actually expecting a lot more familiarity than they would in a bar like Little Red Door, just because they have this, like, they arrive and it's like, hey guys, how are you? And you just have to adapt because it's a 5-star environment, and you should be able to do this in any kind of venue.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to reading your guest, right? If you see that they're comfortable and they're the kind of couple or the group that can go along with the hey guys, then that's great, right? Julio, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's depending the place you work. I remember when I came to United States like 14 years ago, I was working in a bar that they didn't want us to be too serious. They want to be more friendly. And at the beginning, I was like, good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, you know, like that kind of welcome to. And they didn't want us to be more friendly. They want us to be more friendly, like, what's up, guys? Or hello, guys, how are you? Welcome. But I remember, like, everybody at that time was using hi there. Hi there, hi there. And I didn't know, I had no idea what's hi there, because I didn't know, I'd never heard that before. And I say, hi there. I mean, I never used that, but it's fine. I mean, like, it's depending the place you work. It depends the place you work, how friendly, how informal you want, casual you want to be, but it depends the place. Some place they are more like the language is totally different, and I'm fine with that. You know, it's also depending the people who visit you. If you are friends of industry people, probably you, hey, what's up, guy? How are you? Good to see you. But yeah, if it's a couple that you never seen before, and probably old people, you cannot say, hey, hi guys, how are you? Because it's the first time you see them. It's dependent. Yeah, it's dependent the person. Yeah.
Right. So again, reading the gas, depending on where you work, that kind of thing. So what about language that we use to actually describe drinks and spirits? I hear a lot of people, the word funky comes up all the time, right? You've got something that tastes like it's always like, oh, that's so funky. Oh, that's super sweet. I think we need to, right? We need to expand that vocabulary. And I think I personally look to the wine world. With wine, you have so many descriptors, right? And so how do we teach people to be able to go beyond funky and super sweet and,
Smooth.
smooth? Quick, what's another word for
That's
smooth?
the word.
Ray, what's another word for smooth?
Sweet. No, is it? I don't know.
What? Okay. What's another word for smooth, Julio? Do you know? Can you think of one? Oh,
Yes. Just, I can hear you now. I was a little bit blurry,
sorry.
the image.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. I was just saying, he's really just stalling for time, mind you. But no, I'm saying, what's another word for smooth?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the one people say, oh, it's so smooth. Even if it's strong or whatever, they always say it's smooth. Probably the millennials.
Remy, you were. Yeah,
food is associated with sweetness. I don't know. I find on this particular topic, I don't believe I can really help. I'm terrible at explaining stuff because I tend to I'm going to say things that are quite abstract and obviously only make sense for me. So the same way you talk about, if you go to wine tasting and quite a high level wine tasting, it's only abstract stuff. It's far away wildfire in the coast of Madagascar. And it's like, what are you talking about? But at the same time, it does generate a certain kind of, I want to say like a background, like almost a poetic background. And it's true that I think this is very helpful, but I find myself often describing flavors as color, blue, red, or this kind, even if it doesn't really make sense. So I don't think I'm particularly helpful there.
I think I think
refreshing.
Just getting back to smooth though. I mean, you could say velvety, you could say silky, texture, mouthfeel, that kind of thing. So the point I'm trying to make though is like just find other adjectives to describe, just because that only really makes you look smarter, but it's really just other ways to communicate. And to be fair, I will say that obviously Julio's first language is Spanish, Remy's first language is French, and I'm just so amazed and impressed at how that people be able to communicate so well. And by the way, we're going to be redoing these seminars in Spanish and French, right? Afterwards. Yes. So stay tuned for that. But so I really, anyway, so making drinks. The reason I wanted to talk about this though is because again, let's take the vodka soda, for instance. There's so many people that malign that drink, and how many times have people ordered it and you see bartender go, great, vodka soda, and meanwhile somebody orders a whiskey soda or a Japanese whiskey highball, which is essentially same thing but different spirit. Then it suddenly all this work goes into it, and people are like fawning over, oh my god, that's so cool. So what's the difference there? Is there a difference? Should there be a difference? Okay, Remy, I see you shaking your head.
I don't think there should be any difference. I think this is something that I was very guilty of a few years ago, especially working in I think I was working in pubs at the time, and you could even tell people that were drinking Guinness were cool and people that were drinking cider were not as cool. And it was as simple as this. And I think throughout the years, you understand that if someone wants a pint of Irish cream with a dash of melon liqueur on top, it's like, who am I to have an opinion about this? And I think this is a very I think this is a necessary step to understand that there's absolutely no wrong orders, and that the second you feel you have a little bit of pride towards your profession, you're always going to try and make it the nicest possible way. And it's a lot of fun. I remember getting annoyed when people would order a vodka soda or whatever. A mojito was one of them. It was that phase where everyone was ordering mojito, and you're like, oh, mojito, doesn't know that I'm super good at my job. And it's the most absurd thing. It's so childish and it's so self-centered. And this is a mistake that I think we all go through at some time, to believe that we are the center of the experience for the guest. And this is obviously not the case. So whatever people want to drink, this is something I hate to be told, well, I don't want to make this drink. It's like, well, just get another job, because it's your job to make drinks the same way it's mine.
Exactly. Julio, you've got to tackle the mojito question. How many mojitos have you actually made? Do you know in your career?
No, when I was in Italy, I was making by myself, not the other bartenders, 500 mojito a night average, like 500 mojito a night. So for me, mojito is like something normal. Here in La Trova, I can make, I mean, total, the whole La Trova make 150 average a night. Probably I can make 30 or 40, but any drink you make, it should be made with the same love, because at the end we are not drink makers, we are bartenders. So if somebody come to my bar and order a beer, a glass of wine, a Coca-Cola, it should be done with the same love, with the same, I mean, a vodka soda, you should take the proper glassware, the proper glass. You should use good ice, the same ice, and with style or with technique, everything. It should be with a good technique, even to put the ice into the glass. You should use the right amount of a good vodka and a good soda. And at the end, you know, the straw, the stir, or the garnish, it should be proper. So if somebody order a vodka soda, you have to be sure to make the best vodka soda you can make, and to do it with the same love. And remember, a Saturday night, you're super busy. When somebody order a vodka soda, it's like, oh yes,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Imagine
Exactly.
somebody ordering a Singapore Sling or Ramos Gin Fizz. You're like, come on. So we love to make cocktails, but what we love the most is to take care of people, whatever they order. I don't care if they order vodka soda or an old-fashioned fancy. For me, it's the same. I mean, like, it's pretty much the same. We make people happy with whatever they order, not just cocktails.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. It's about, like you both said, that pride in your drink making, right? And not only that, but sometimes those vodka soda drinkers, maybe it's a transitional drink for them. You know what I mean? Or maybe you can use that as a conversation to introduce them to that whiskey soda that we talked about, you know, and or maybe it's their first
Yeah.
time in your, right? And if you make them a crappy drink the first time, no matter what the drink is, are they going to come back? You know, if you treat them with disdain. So that's so important. And by the way, I do know of quite a few bartenders who drink vodka sodas, right? Just because they want to give their palate a cleanse. So you just never know who you're serving, and you know, just great point, gents. So, what about creating cocktails now? I mean, I find that there's a lot, you know, there's a lot of people that can really make interesting drinks, very interesting drinks, and that taste interesting. But then when it actually comes down to making classics, that can be a challenge for certain people, because maybe certain, you know, you haven't been taught how to balance out a proper cocktail, or how to balance a cocktail properly. And I think that's really important. And a game I like to play is that game, similar but different. You know, that where the guest says, "I like that, but I want something different." You know, and thinking about which way to go. I mean, I think the Manhattan's the easiest, right? There's so many Manhattan variations. But what if somebody orders that Aviation or the Tom Collins or something? Like, which way do you go? So I think that's a great exercise to get into, a little game you can play. But so Remy, what do you think? And of course, you are, you know, one of the kings of using all the culinary techniques, and you've got a lot of machinery there. You have all the toys. So what do you feel about creating cocktails, like the creative things, as opposed to just the classics? How do you kind of mesh those together? Or are they completely separate, or?
No, I think it's what I think probably Julio and I have got very different angles and point of view on this. It's true that for me, the bartending is very much of an opportunity to talk about different stuff, and usually it's going to be art, philosophy, poetry, whatever, things that are interesting for everybody. I think that flavors is usually a media to this kind of conversation, and usually about art. So it's true that for me, that creating drinks is probably, for me, this is probably what I would do as part of my pre-shift. I never come in at work with the same impression of my job, and I never come in with the same intention in terms of the drinks being made. So it's true that I mean, I don't even know I don't remember what the question is, but I think in the sense of the creating an experience that is going to be unique for the guest is very important. But then, okay, I remember, how do we fit classic in there? Well, exactly for love for the guest. I need to. It doesn't matter how cool I think I am with my little rotovac carbonating, whatever, distilling, clarifying stuff. Effectively, if someone wants an old fashioned, or if someone wants a mojito, I have to do it. And then, as you say, I don't want anyone to leave the bar being like, well, they do a really great cocktail, but their mojito wasn't good enough, because that would be upsetting. So first of all, I think I personally care a lot more about the people than the fancy creation, but the fancy creation is something I do for me, and I try to share. If that makes sense, maybe.
Absolutely. But let me ask you, is it really important right now, given the current climate and what's going on, how important is creating the next or developing the next new technique in cocktails? Should we be looking more back toward the classics, or should we be still looking to innovate right now? What do you think?
I don't believe they're mutually exclusive. I don't believe that classics have to be set in time. I think there was a time where Sazerac was a new drink, right? And then there was a time where mojito was the most innovative thing. I think that classics are always going to create themselves, and techniques, as they become more and more democratic, are becoming part of our job. So it's not because I am in my living room, I have a rotovap there, I have a centrifuge there, literally. I have my board just in front of me, and I know the things that I want to research. If I stop researching, it doesn't mean I'm going to be a worse bartender, because I will do my job exactly the same. But this is something I do kind of selfishly because it's fun. It's fun to look for new things. But again, I think there's an interesting point, and what I'm seeing in Paris at the moment at Le Syndicat is that people are going towards more approachable, understandable flavors, because what is important at the moment is the experience of conviviality more than the flavor adventure that you might get from a particular combination or a particular technique. And I think that this is always be at the center, but more now than ever, we get back together, and I think people love people. So there's that amazing feeling of conviviality, and people are happy to drink a glass of white wine that isn't even particularly good, not at Le Syndicat, but in all the bars, you see people are just so excited to finally be able to be together, that it's true that now more than ever, the cocktail or the drink they're having is secondary to the experience they're having. And I think that that's brilliant.
Julio, do you have thoughts on that? And by the way,
yes, I think. No, come.
Sorry, I was going to ask, do you actually go through kind of steps or process with your team when you work on classics?
Yes. One of the biggest problems that young bartender has right now is they want to be mixologists before they being a bartender. So it's something that every young bartender, they want to start creating drinks before understanding and knowing all the classics, all the most important classics. And it's something that I always teach people or tell people about it. You first have to know all the classics to master the classic, how to make it, and then you can start working around making some variation of the classic and innovating with some new cocktails. If you know how to make almost perfect the classic cocktail, Manhattan, old-fashioned, Sazerac, and Martini, then you can start being yourself, like, okay, I'm going to start playing with some other ingredients and some other flavors, but always following some templates from families, cocktail families. If you know the cocktail families, first you have to study the families, how the families are, like sour, daisies, and Collins. And then you have to understand that almost every cocktail, new cocktail you create should belong to one of those families, just changing ingredients. So first you should have to make goddamn good Martini and Manhattan, and then you have to be able to innovate and create a new cocktail. But I do believe the simple the better. The simple the better is the line I'm going right now. I'm stick to the classics. I do make new cocktails, but always with little variation for classics. And I remember in London 6 years ago in the global Bombay Sapphire competition, I was with Remy, and I was doing a cocktail with 4 different flavors and a lot of techniques and spuma on top. It was very complicated. And I remember Remy won with a 3 ingredients cocktail, very simple, like super simple, and he won with that competition. And it makes me understand that the simple the better. It's what I'm doing now. Even Remy is doing a lot of machinery right now behind the bar, but in my place I don't have any of that. I mean, I'm more like now classic and classic Cuban cocktails, and I think the simple the better. But always make good classics and then try to create new cocktails.
So 2 questions. how do we know, how do we get to the point where we can actually balance a drink out? Like, how do we get our palates to that point? And secondly, is there like one reference book or a couple of reference books that you can tell us about where you actually trust the way that these classes are built?
Before you get those questions out, just to let you know, folks, you've got about 10 minutes left. If you want to ask any questions, now is the time to send through those questions in that chat box.
Okay. So, all right. Yes, Remy?
Yes, me. How do we get to tell balance or structure of drinks? I think from drinking. This might not be the most PC answer, but I think that if you don't
Tasting, from tasting.
Sorry?
Tasting.
From tasting, no, but I think for me it's kind of the same. Tasting is I don't mean get drunk, I mean drinking.
Okay.
If you haven't had 1,000 Negroni, the likelihood is you won't be able to identify what a Negroni is off or not. So we always talk about people, have you tried your cocktail? But if you don't know what you're trying and what it should be, I don't believe that's particularly helpful. So trying drinks, of course, but also usually you come to having a drink or anything that you put in your mouth, whether it's food or drink, or if you smell a perfume, it's always to have a little notepad and be like, I would change this. And there's always, if you look at flavor as a line, there's always let's talk about salt, right? You have your tomato and you want to add salt. There's a line that is almost infinite, which is under salted, and then there's a micro little point where it's perfect, and then there's an infinity of too salty. So for me, nothing is ever perfect. So as long as you're conscious of the things you are tasting, for me, you can learn balance really, really fast, because you always try and correct. And of course, your Negroni is always going to be slightly more bitter by 0.01 milliliters of Campari in the drink. This is going to affect it. There's always something to change.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're conscious of as long as you're conscious of what you're tasting and smelling.
Okay. And all right, Julio, quickly, do you have one great bar book that you always refer to for classic recipes?
Yes, I have actually 3 that I always check before doing anything. Essential Classics from Del de Groff, Classic Cocktail from Salvatore Calabrese, and the other one is PDT by Jim Meehan. All those 3, they have, I think, everything I have to do. I check those books first, and it's depending on what I'm doing. If I'm doing something tiki, like Potion like Caribbean from Jeff Berry, and Smuggler Cove. But it's different depending. But classic cocktail, those 3 that I mentioned: Essential Classics and Salvatore Calabrese.
Remy, do you have any off the top of your head?
I do like Liquid Intelligence, but more for standards than anything. And otherwise, I don't. I think books on minimalism can be very helpful, or books about art can be very helpful to understand that less can be more, or simple is better. I think it's probably it. Yeah.
Okay. So just quickly, so we're just a couple of things. Teamwork. I mean, we have to remember that we are part of a team. There's generally, even when you're alone behind that bar, you're still reliant on, other people at other points, to have set you up the day before or the day after. So any thoughts on teamwork and and cross training, which I think is really important as well, being able to work every aspect of the room, like you were saying earlier, Remy, and being that utility player, especially now moving forward when staffs are going to be streamlined, and the more that you can do, the more adaptable you are, the more of an asset you are in any bar. So if Julio, why don't you take teamwork? Just give me a couple of points on.
It's very important. If you don't have a teamwork in your place, you can have the best 3 bartenders in the world right now working behind the bar, and it's not gonna be right. It's the game. I mean, the chip is not gonna work that easily. If you have 3 guys that probably they are not superstar, but they work each other really good and they help each other out, it's gonna be fantastic. I work with a couple of young guys behind the bar that if somebody asks me, oh, can I have a daiquiri? When I'm putting the sugar and the lime juice, one of them is coming with the glass, the cup from the freezer. The other one is, I don't have to tell them what to do. They listen what guest is asking me, and they always they come in right away with the ice and this and that. So I'm ready. So that's part of part of the successful work behind the bar. You know, teamwork.
Yeah, Remy, any thoughts on teamwork or cross training?
Yeah, very quickly. I think that all the bars that I've worked at, we've always tried and have very much of a democracy. So everyone is on the same level. So during shift, there's no responsibility, but everyone has got defined sectors. So let's say, Remy, today you're in charge of cutting the ice. It means that I know that I have to cut the ice and I'm therefore accountable for the ice being cut. But these roles changes every day. So for the idea of an all-rounded bartender, you just do everything, but you always have one task that you're supposed to accomplish and that you're accountable for. And I think that this is a great way to give responsibility to your staff, as well as keep everyone motivated, because there's nothing better than having a task that you can actually do and be like, ah, I've done my job today. Like, you know, it's a good feeling when you're responsible for something and you're doing it well. I think that's usually a great way to work as a team and have a nice atmosphere and vibe behind the bar.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, and that's how you're not bored either. You know, if you can do like work the floor one day and have guest interaction, and quite frankly, that takes a little bit of strain off your body from, you know, shaking every night as well. You know, so maybe you mix it up that way. So I think that's very important. And just a couple of, I see Angus looming there, so just a couple of resources, because you know we all want to be that more interesting person behind the bar. How do you get to be more interesting? By reading, right, or by learning things. So you know we know about of course the Jerry and the Ananas, and here in New York, since it's Bar Convent Brooklyn, the New York Public Libraries have a lot of free resources and free courses. BRIC, which is it's like a media organization in downtown Brooklyn, has a lot of free or very inexpensive classes as well. So and of course mentorship is very important. So yes, Angus. Hi.
Nothing. I just have two questions, which I really wanted to get in. Two questions, etc. One very modern, one perhaps a little bit older. The first question was, I look like a guy, but I'm non-binary. And you guys doesn't bother me as much because in the Midwest, it's almost always gender neutral. But I've had people get angry over it, and especially the word ladies. How do you think or deal with gendering people when you're behind the bar in today's day and age?
Well, actually, funnily enough, I always use the term folks. And I don't know if that sounds old-fashioned or not, but I usually say, good evening, folks. How are you folks doing? Just to take all of that out of the way, because I did make that mistake once. I said ladies, and this one person was obviously, well, not obvious at the time, but I found out was gender neutral. And the look that they gave me, I went, I shouldn't have said that. So now I just go with.
Okay.
Julio, Remy? Remy, you look like you have a thought? No, Remy or Julio?
No, not particularly. I think it's a mistake I've made, and I've been lucky. And I think that I don't know. I haven't really, to be completely frank, I haven't thought about it in a way that I came up with an answer, because it is true that it is part of standards especially in 5-star hotels, to always refer to someone as, you know, sir or madam. So I think there's something that perhaps needs to be updated in like big structures or big corporation. But it's true that I didn't really have a think in depth on the topic.
What if we came up with, can we use Sir Dame? I mean, you know, in French, you've got Monsieur Dame, which is a combination of Monsieur and Madame. What if we call everybody Sir Dame? Let's think about that.
Yeah, let's
think about that. That's a great thought to go out with, because unfortunately, we have reached the end of our time for today. Thank you all for attending today's webinar. Thank you, Remy, Franky, and Julio, for sharing your knowledge and wisdom, etc. We'll send out a recording of the session today, the re-examining the role of the bartender. And if you didn't get a chance to answer your questions, send them through and we'll try and follow up with you individuality. Thank you all so much. You all deserve a drink, depending on what time of the world it is, where you are, etc. And thank you at home for watching. And we'll see you again next Monday at our normal time of 4 p.m. Thank you so much, folks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.